has yet to be formed before business of the House continues, and now the bill for members of Parliament to come back to the House for business to continue.
And so under consideration is the motion of thanks that has been moved by Mabatizia, Member of Parliament, Ms. Imelda Munabantu, that the thanks of this Assembly be recorded for the exposition of public policy contained in His Excellency the President's address. And so this motion has been seconded by Katanshi, Member of Parliament, Mr. Anthony Mumba.
And there are some bills that have been presented to the House by the various ministers, and this was one of the bills was the National Pension Scheme Amendment Bill, National Assembly Bill number 1 of 2023, which was presented by the Minister of Labour and Social Security. There was also presentation of the Controlled Substances Bill, the National Assembly Bill number 2 of 2023, which was presented by the Minister of Health. Another bill presented to the House
is the Examinations Council of Zambia Bill, National Assembly Bill number 3 of 2023, and so this bill was presented by the. So just now we take it to the floor of the House.
When the House was suspended, when business was suspended, the House was considering the motion moved by the Honourable Member from Mapatizia that the thanks of this Assembly be recorded for the exposition of public policy contained in His Excellency the President's address, and the Honourable Member from Mapatizia was moving the motion. May the Honourable Member continue.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. On humanity, equity, social justice, equality, and non-discrimination. Mr. Speaker, it goes without saying that the new Dawn government administration is a great respecter of human rights, as has been demonstrated through the abolishment of the death penalty. You agree with me that the death penalty violates the right to life and undermines human dignity, which every human being is entitled to. Therefore, the act of abolishing the death penalty will go a long way in promoting human dignity and social justice in our society. Mr. Speaker, I'll be failing in my duties if I do not mention how the Enhanced Constituency Development Fund, CDF, is helping to foster human dignity, equity, and social justice in our society. Since its unprecedented increase in 2022, CDF is changing lives in the communities. The results are there for everyone to see. For instance, the CDF community projects with a human face have started being implemented, with vulnerable children in boarding schools having their fees paid, and vulnerable youths being sponsored for skills development training. These actions have far-reaching benefits in improving the welfare of our communities and the nation as a whole. Mr. Speaker, on good governance and integrity, it is gratifying to note that in the quest to foster good governance and integrity, the government has intensified the fight against corruption and financial crimes in service delivery. The establishment of the Economic and Financial Crimes Code is a case in point. Further, the increased use of digital tools in cutting red tape, reducing discretion, and limiting human interaction will ultimately help to reduce corruption. I therefore welcome government efforts towards digital transformation. In addition, I commend government for decentralizing the human resource management system in the public service to the provincial and district levels, as was seen in the 2022 recruitment of more than 40,000 public service employees. Mr. Speaker, in conclusion, allow me to urge my fellow members to take a lead in entrenching our national values and principles in our society as articulated by the President. The onus is on us to build a nation with morally upright, united citizens with a shared heritage. Mr. Speaker, with these few words, I beg to move.
The question is that the thanks of this assembly be recorded for the exposition of public policy contained in His Excellency the President's address. Does the seconder wish to speak now or later?
Now, Mr. Speaker.
The Honorable Member for Katanshi.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, for giving the people of Kantanshi an opportunity to add a voice to the motion on the floor of the House. As I rise to second the motion, I would like to thank the mover, the Honorable Member from Patizia, for highlighting a number of important points. And before I go into my thoughts and contributions on behalf of the people of Kantanshi, I would like to thank the government for finally signing the Ndola, the Lusaka Ndola dual carriageway. I think that in itself is a clear demonstration that as a country we are moving in the right direction in as far as infrastructure, which has not in the last 18 months not been very clear. Mr. Speaker, the President did mention a very important point on the floor of this House, that it is a floor for ideas, exchange of ideas for the development of our communities, in this case our constituencies. And therefore, when he lays a speech as he did, the important point is for us to expand some of the points that he was raising. I'll quickly talk about education, which he talked about as being free. But, Mr. Speaker, there are certain costs within the education sector which is hampering some of the results that he mentioned that will benefit our children, particularly our child. He did mention that now we have a number of children going into school because user fees have been abolished, exams have been abolished. But, Mr. Speaker, there are fees that, as Member of Parliament, have been incurring. If a child, for example, fails his grade 9 exam and repeats the following year and tries to combine the two results that he acquired for him to be given a place in the following year that he passed, that costs about 650 kwacha. So that does not amount to free education. If you look at an external child, a grade 9 pupil, who's writing exams as an external pupil, is subjected to 25 kwacha per paper. If you look at a child who has finished grade 12 and the results are not good, and he decides or she decides to resit for a paper or 3 papers so that she can become competitive, get into college, which is what the President was talking about, that these opportunities under free education will provide this country becoming better education-wise, that is about 120 per paper. That is, and the participation fee of 75 kwacha. And unfortunately, members of Parliament know that they are the ones who approached. So this, I would like to urge the Minister of Education to go back, especially that is bringing a bill on the Examination Council of Zambia, so that we can actually feel this freedom that is being talked about in as far as free education. Mr. Speaker, I'll talk also about the issues under marriage. The President talked about us upholding marriage, but you cannot uphold marriage if you're not able to provide for your family. And one of the things that is happening in Kantanshi is that my people, my young people, my young colleagues who are minors, who have lost jobs, can't afford to look after their families. And if they can't afford to look after their families, definitely marriages are breaking down. So even as the President was lamenting on the issue of saying we need to make sure that we uphold our values, the government needs to move faster to start dealing with the issues that we are having that are inhibiting job creation, that are inhibiting people. We have 7 million young people looking for jobs. We need to move away from doing things traditionally from the way we always do them. It's not government's responsibility to be creating jobs, 40,000 teachers, 40,000 nurses. It's the job of the private sector. Now, if you have, for example, the mining sector, which is the backbone of our economy, and up to now, we're still talking about minerals being moving from one province to the other through smuggling or whatever you want to call it, and yet people are looking for jobs, the government is looking for resources, I think it's important that we go back to the drawing board, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I'll also add one of the important things that the President talked about, and that is goods that are produced locally. We're supposed to know which manufacturers can we support so that the cost of our goods that are essential in our homes are cheaper. So how do we have expensive goods that we're producing locally, and then those that we import are even fetching for cheaper price? Then there must be something wrong with our taxation system. And talking about taxation, the President talked about us as Zambians being compliant. I would have expected him to go further and outline clearly how he's expecting corporates, especially under mines, which is the backbone of our economy, how they are starting to pay the taxes, their fair share. If you go to ZRA today, go and see the amount of money that is being paid through VAT refunds. But how much are they paying in terms of corporation tax or taxes that are supposed to support our treasury? So that us this time, when we are having, we are supposed to have cheaper taxes so that we have more spending money for the economy. But it's the other way around. The mining firms are having a field day. So we need to review that. The ministry space, and it has to do it immediately and correctly. Mr. Speaker, I'll move to human dignity. There is this huge emphasis of only empowering youths. We can't be a country of traders. Others have got aspirations in the particular fields that they train in. This person wants to be a nurse. This person wants to be a doctor. They want to remain that way. So there is need for us to move away from just empowering, giving money, which is what we have been doing. And as a member of your Committee for Public Accounts, there is no loan under this empowerment of youths that has ever performed. So why don't we move away some of this money and put it into apprenticeships so that there is money for young people, those 7 million, instead of saying, no, we've only got a position for 5,000 people, then you have 50,000 applying. You're going to induce corruption. It's only going to become inevitable. But if you got the same resources and you said, let's get 100,000 people and move this 300 million or even 50 million and give it to living wages and we spread the people back into the economy, two things will be happening. They'll be earning money and they'll be earning their experience in readiness for a growing economy. So UPND has to change and it has to respond to what is currently happening on the ground. I'll end with the issue of climate change, Mr. Speaker. Going to Kamwala, all the houses there are flooded. Who's speaking for them? And yet here we've got the Ministry of Green Economy. Where is the climate fund? So that we can go and draw that water which is making people not stay in their houses, so that they can be able to live decently. So we need UPND to up its game. It does have the opportunity. It does have the command because it won elections genuinely. And therefore, for some of us who believe in hard work and believe in working for the people, we will continue to work with you, but we will continue to also challenge you on ideas as espoused by the President. I thank you.
Thank you.
First of all, I second the motion, and I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Any further debate? The Honorable Member for Namwala.
Thank you so very much, Mr. Speaker, for giving me this opportunity to look at the presidential speech, which is the motion on the floor of this House today. Mr. Speaker, we are very humbled by what was said by the President and his consistency on the issue of unity, love, and hard working. The President is on record that whenever he comes here, he has preached the word of love, which we all want to believe. We can only progress when we love each other. The President went on to talk about the issue of unity. Mr. Speaker, we can only get or meet the obligations when we are united. Similarly, only when we want to achieve what we want to do that working. Mr. Speaker, allow me to look at the issue of the Public Order Act, which the President indicated when he was here. This is an instrument which we all know that it was enacted during the colonial era. And unfortunately or fortunately, we have a president now who, when he was the leader of the opposition, continued to preach about the repealing of the Public Order Act, which we have seen now to come almost to flourish. The Public Order Act, this is an act which was purely enacted to actually minors, those who are perceived to be liberators or fighters of the colonial leaders during that time. This act minus those who are fighting for independence during that time because the colonial masters never wanted them actually to achieve or to meet the intended goals. When you look at the Public Order Act, this is an act or instrument which was abused before. We have a couple of precedences that were enacted or that were passed to ensure that this Public Order Act was aligned with the tenets of good governance that we have been preaching about. But unfortunately, the previous regimes had no time to respect this Public Order Act. I remember very well, Mr. Speaker, during the previous regime, we were actually invited to lodge in issues that had to do with the amendment of the same Public Order Act. The first one I remember very well, we were invited to lodge or to make amendments or submissions on what we felt this Public Order Act was supposed to look like. But unfortunately, that was not respected in that it was not actually adhered to. Again, in 2017, 2018, the same appeal was made to the citizens to make submissions towards this same Public Order Act. Unfortunately, it was not adhered to as well. Now, our current Republican President, His Excellency Mr. Hakainde Hichilema, has maintained the same stamina he had. Now we are seeing advances, or we are seeing movements going towards achieving what we have been longing for quite some time. This Public Order Act, Mr. Speaker, will give the people of Zambia the liberties, the freedoms to associate and actually assemble so that they can share their views with then the perceived supporters of those who are their political parties. If we went by what was happening before, Mr. Speaker, citizens who are this public actually abused before, only those, I will repeat, only those who were perceived to be affiliates of the people or the parties in power were actually allowed to enjoy these rights to capacity. But now what we are doing, we are ensuring that the citizens of this country, regardless of ethnicity, regardless of geography, regardless of the political affiliation, the same powers or liberties will be allowed for everyone to enjoy. And this is what we have been crying for quite some time. Mr. Speaker, this Public Order Act, once enacted at an even rate, the way things are now, and with the contents of it, the citizens of this country will be allowed freely to associate, to speak to their associates, so that actually the political atmosphere or the political strings will be exercised by everyone at a normal or reasonable rate. Mr. Speaker, the President also talked about the issue of decentralization. Decentralization that is pure taking power to the people, let people make decisions on their own. This is one of the tenets that actually has always been just talked to without the actual realization. But we are happy now that through the able leadership, the people of Zambia can see now the fruits of good governance through decentralization. The people now in our constituencies, the people now in our districts are able to make decisions on their own and what they feel should be done in their constituencies. This has been something that we have been looking for quite some time. And I want to believe now the actual tenets of good governance will give now the stamina to what people call a democratic state. Because in an event of a minus of those tenets, Mr. Speaker, the country would have still remained the way it was before. Speaking for the people of Namala, I think we are humbled, having gone through the speech which the President gave, gone through what is the tenants actually represents or stands for, that they are being actualized, and it has been the need for the citizens of this country to ensure that people across the country, people across all tribe lines, people of this country are allowed now to make decisions on what they feel should be done in their respective constituencies, and to associate, assemble, and share ideas on how they feel they should be governed. Mr. Speaker, with these few words, I submit.
Next, the Honorable Member for Katombola.
Mr. Speaker, I have withdrawn.
The Honorable Member for Chiengi.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thank you for allowing the voice of Chiengi to be heard on this very important thanks motion to the address that the President made on Friday. Mr. Speaker, I must say I was unable to attend in physical because I wasn't too well. However, I followed from my house, listening carefully when the President addressed this great nation, Zambia. Mr. Speaker, when I listened to the speech, and I've gone through now the speech, I must admit that whoever was the author of the speech had put his mind or her mind to it. It was a well-written speech. However, Mr. Speaker, the reader of the speech kept on veering off from the speech. And I got so worried. Why? This is the head of state. And I don't expect the head of state to come and address the nation to settle scores with the former regime. Mr. Speaker, I'm one of those who suffered at the hands of the former regime. But I cannot be using that. I cannot be using that from time to time when I'm given an opportunity to address the nation. The head of state is the head of state. He is no longer the head of a certain political party. He's the father of the nation. My appeal to him is that, Mr. President, Mr. Hakainde Hichilema, when given this opportunity to address the nation, as far as we are concerned, he comes to address the nation on the progress made on application of principles and values. Now, we are talking about the values and principles. Here we are. If you listen to the language that which even our colleagues, some of them use, like saying, you did this, how do you expect the nation to heal? The nation needs to heal and to move forward. We need to be united. Now, if the head is leading in reminding the nation, same things, we are not heading anywhere. We, as a Christian nation, we have a Bible where it says there is a blessing when the brothers live in unity. And there God pours blessing on it. As long as we keep on pulling in different directions, we are not going to prosper in this nation. Mr. Speaker, when I listen to the President talking about patriotism, I was really, as I've alluded to, the speech itself was good. But each time he veered off from the speech, that really worried the people of Chiengi. Because even in Chiengi, we had our own challenges. But imagine as a leader of Chiengi, I keep on reminding PF and UPN what they did to me. What will I be saying to the people of Chiengi?
There's a point of order.
Thank you, Honorable Mr. Speaker. I stand on a point of order according to Standing Order 65. I want to be made understood how the Honorable Member of Parliament is debating. Is she debating the speech of the President or the President? I want a serious ruling.
Order. I think there's a clear distinction between presidents and president. President is an institution. President is a person. So the honorable member went off her way talking directly about the president. So let's desist being personal in our debates. Let's ensure that we restrict ourselves to the debate speech that was presented on the floor. May the honorable member continue.
Mr. Speaker, when the head of state was addressing the nation, this is what we are debating now. He kept on referring on how he was ill-treated. And Mr. Speaker, we should not take this lightly. You go on Facebook, this is the same language which is coming from the other side. Here on the floor of the House, it's the same. We need to change the way we speak if we are to be patriotic about this nation and uniting. There's one Zambia, one nation, which the president spoke about. He's the one who was reading the nation. Who should I refer to? Mr. Speaker, we need to be sincere with what is wrong. And if I were to be rebuked in love like this, I'll accept. Mr. Speaker, we need the president, when he's given a chance to address the nation, to speak about the nation issues. Recently, you know, since you're saying I cannot, you know what happened in Eastern Province when there was that Anglican issue. Mr. Speaker, we need to unite as a nation. It's very, very important. We are talking about one Zambia, one nation. Who is going to carry this flag of one Zambia, one nation? When each time we start talking of what happened, each time we stand up, we're talking about what happened. Who doesn't know what happened? Who didn't risk? When you want to get to a higher office, especially being a king or a president, you expect persecutions. There's the program called Lion King. It's very simple. No one has ever ascended to that seat without being persecuted. And the reason is that when you are going there, you should be ready. Even, Mr. Speaker, I just want to correct when somebody was trying. But I'm talking about patriotism here. We have to be patriotic about our country. If my colleagues on the other side will keep on questioning, let it be so. We'll go on like this, running in different directions. But the truth of the matter is that our president should address us as the nation and not the things that happen between him and CPF. There's always campaign. He can say that or other thing, not when given such an opportunity. We needed to know the progress that has been made on application of principles and values in our nation. It's very simple, Mr. Speaker. And we have to know, what have we done, what have we achieved? That's what is important. Yes, you spoke about removing this.
Order. Now, Honorable Member, you're contradicting it yourself. Because the only way the President could put a measure on what has been achieved as regards to values and principles is to measure about the current situation, statistics of the past. Then if the President does that, now he can ascertain whether the country is making progress or not. Because if he can't refer to the past as regards to values, it will be difficult for him to know whether the country is making progress or not. You may continue, Honorable Member.
Mr. Speaker, if you say the president has, so every year he comes to address the nation, you should be referring to that. For how long? Then there's no need of forgiveness in this land. Let's move on as enemies. Then it will be better. There's no way if somebody offended you and you're the leader, keep on reminding them. Mr. Speaker, hear me very well. It's very, very important that we help the head of state to realize that he's the head of the nation. No matter how he got injured. I can give an example what happened in 2021. The vice president was even beaten in Chiengi, but she still talks to those people. I'm talking about showing the true patriotism for the unit of purpose. We should show the nation that we are different. That's what I'm trying to say here. We're talking about patriotism.